Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the brand new multi-core backend, which has literally just been added to Yuzu Emulator in its early access branch. Performance and playability wise, this is literally a game changer. For many people, this multi-core update is going to make playing your Switch games on PC through Yuzu many times faster than playing them natively on the Nintendo Switch. This video is going to focus mainly on performance and game playability, as I just said. First of all, let's take a quick example of just one major change this multi-core update is going to be adding, for example, in a game like Super Mario Odyssey. Now, if you've ever played this game on Yuzu Emulator before, you're likely aware of the fact that when loading from kingdom to kingdom, or from area to area, it usually takes between 15 to 30 seconds for your performance to stabilize and return to full speed. Thankfully, with this new multi-core update, this is no longer going to happen. Your performance through loading screens and gameplay is now going to be fluid and perfectly consistent, not only in Super Mario Odyssey, but in practically every single compatible game on this emulator. The multi-core feature itself also works for every single game, and as we're about to take a look at, it dramatically improves performance in most of them. Now, usually I do my testing on my own main system, which contains an i7-8700K and a GTX 1080 Ti. However, for the purposes of this video and to demonstrate just how fast this multi-core is, I'm now going to swap over to an i5-4690K clocked at 4.2 GHz and an NVIDIA GTX 1060. Let's take a look at the performance difference between the old single-core version of Yuzu and this new multi-core update. First up, we have Pokemon Sword and Shield, a game that very recently became fully playable on Yuzu. On the old single-core backend, we get between 14 and 18 frames per second. Using multi-core, we get well over full speed at all times in gameplay. One thing I want to make very clear is that if you're using a multi-core, you're not going to be able to unlimit your frame rate like you can do when using a single core. In order to go past this 30 frames per second limit in any of the games I'm going to be demonstrating, I've had to make use of 60 frame per second mods for any of those games. If you're looking for those mods, I'll leave links to them down in this video's description. Okay, so Pokemon Sword and Shield is running at and above full speed on this 7-year-old CPU. Let's see what else we can throw at this new update. How about some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? On the old single-core backend, we get between 30 to 38 frames per second to a damn close to 60 frame per second lock on a 4-player Smash. That is yet another incredible performance upgrade thanks to multi-core. If fighting games aren't your thing, maybe a trip through a haunted hotel is. Luigis Mansion 3, as you can very clearly see, has also seen a huge performance boost thanks to this new update. In this lobby area, practically the most demanding place in the entire game, we are running at and above full speed at all times on this old i5. As is apparent in gameplay, Luigi's Mansion does have its fair share of graphical issues. However, speed and performance wise, this game is now running amazingly. If ghosts and haunted houses are not your thing, then maybe something like the JRPG Fire Emblem Three Houses is more your speed. As is apparent by the benchmark, this title has received between an 80 to 160% performance improvement thanks to the implementation of multi-core. Due to an issue with the current audio renderer and this multi-core implementation, you are advised to use audio stretching for the best possible audio quality in this game. This problem will hopefully be fixed in the coming days. Have you been looking for a relaxing island getaway? Well, search no more. Animal Crossing New Horizons has seen a very nice performance jump thanks to this multi-core implementation. On this older i5, I did see a few frame rate drops down to the mid to high 20s. For anybody with a newer CPU than this i5, you can expect a much greater performance. Astral Chain is our next game to take a look at, and as is tradition in this video so far, this game has seen a performance jump of between 70 to 100%. Similar to Luigi's Mansion, it does still have some texture corruption issues. However, performance and playability wise, this game is playable from start to finish, something I'm super happy about because this is just an amazing game. Now, I know we already took a look at Super Mario Odyssey in the beginning of this video, but I didn't really address its performance on this new multi-core update. The reason being is that Super Mario Odyssey just isn't that much affected by multi-core, at least not to the extent that games like Luigi's Mansion, Fire Emblem Three Houses and Astral Chain are. Yes, you are going to get greater performance in Super Mario Odyssey on multicore, but it's definitely not going to be the 50 to 200% performance difference you've seen in other games. The bit of gameplay you just watched is a great example of where you are going to see greater performance in certain areas where you were previously CPU capped, like areas with lots and lots of enemies. For example, Cascade Kingdom, as I've been showcasing in the last few moments. There are in fact several games that are bottlenecked heavily by the emulated GPU on Yuzu. To give you an example of just one of these, I'm going to swap back over to my 8700K system and show you The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. When using multicore, we are getting a very nice performance boost. However, similar to Super Mario Odyssey and Animal Crossing New Horizons, in this game we are severely limited by the emulated GPU. When I say that, I'm not saying your own physical GPU is limiting you. What I mean is the emulator is going to have to implement further emulated GPU optimizations in order to run this and several other games better. Please remember that the gameplay footage you're watching now, where I'm running it at 30 frames per second, is on an 8700K clocked at 4.8 GHz. If you have a slower CPU than this, you can expect lower performance. Now, since I've already shown you what this multicore update can do for an older CPU like the Haswell i5, I'm now going to show you what it can do with something a little bit more high-end in the form of my 8700K. We're back in game in Pokemon Sword and Shield, where instead of getting the 30 frames per second we were getting on the i5, we're much closer to the cap of 60 frames per second using this i7. This performance jump translates over to all of the most demanding areas in the game. 8-player Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is equally as impressive. On my 8700K, I'm able to maintain or be very close to 60 frames per second at all times. And further to this, even if you do drop frames, you're still going to be maintaining a full speed. This is thanks to the host timer used for Yuzus Multicore. One of the most impressive things I think in this new update is running Fire Emblem Three Houses at nearly a locked 60 frames per second. For anybody who's played Fire Emblem Three Houses on Switch with this FPS mod, you'll know that even with a hefty overclock to the system, it's nigh on impossible to reach this kind of performance level. It really is super impressive from an emulator that's only just about to turn 2.5 years old. Astral Chain running on the high-end machine is the last game we're going to be taking a look at, and again, similarly to Fire Emblem, its performance is pretty goddamn unbelievable. Not only does it run at dynamic frame rates due to the 60 FPS mod and host timer implemented by multicore, it's also dramatically sped up in regards to loading between areas thanks to this brand new update. Now, before we continue, there are a few things that need to be noted. One major thing, for example, is that one game we have found does actually perform a small bit worse on this multicore update. This game is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. For some unknown reason, this game seems to push a hell of a lot more GPU data, meaning that if you're using multicore, at least at this feature's launch, this game can in some circumstances actually run a small bit worse. So at least at this time, it is advised to use single core mode until this bug is fixed. In the last few months of testing, impressively, this is the only game that has been found to exhibit these kind of performance issues. Please, if you find any games that do run worse on multicore, do report them on the Yuzu Discord or on the Yuzu forums. You'll find a link to the Discord down in this video's description. Now, as I said, it's not just the games I'm showcasing in this video that are affected by multicore. Every single game works with it. There is literally an almost endless list of games that are now either full speed or that can also now take advantage of using a 60 frames per second patch and also run at full speed using that 60 FPS patch. It's updates like this that make me just so thankful that I'm supporting these guys on their Patreon. They put in a ton of work and they release updates like this constantly. And if you aren't a supporter, now is probably one of the best times to do so, since by doing so, you get access to the early access branch and this new multicore update. As always, you'll find a link to their Patreon down in this video's description. Head on over there, support these guys, and get testing multicore. In the next few days, I'm going to be releasing my updated guide for Yuzu, showing you how to get the best possible performance, not only out of the emulator, but out of your own specific computers also. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss that guide. For now at least, that's going to be it for this video. Once again, cheers for checking it out. Remember to like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and as always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see all future videos from me.